I want you to picture the document currently sitting on a desk in the House of Representatives. It isn't a campaign flyer. It isn't a press release designed for cable news outrage. It is a dry procedural filing that represents the single most severe action the United States Congress can take against a president. We are watching a brand new impeachment resolution being introduced against Donald Trump. But before you roll your eyes and think, I've heard this story before, you need to stop. Because when you actually read the text of this filing, not the headlines, but the legal text, you realize this isn't a recycle of past attempts. This is something legally distinct. Democrats are explicitly invoking Article 2, Section 4 of the Constitution. This is the removal clause. It is the mechanism the founders built into the system not just to punish a crime, but to protect the republic from a leader they deemed dangerous to its survival. The argument being made here is that we have crossed a threshold. The allegation is that the conduct in question satisfies the constitutional standard of high crimes and misdemeanors in a way that demands immediate removal. This isn't just about political friction anymore. This is a stress test of the entire constitutional framework. At its core, this case is about one simple, terrifying question. Is there actually a mechanism left in America to check executive power, or have we reached the point where the president is effectively untouchable? In this video, we are going to strip away the partisan noise. I'm going to walk you through exactly what Article 2, Section 4 means, why this specific legal strategy is being deployed right now ahead of the 2026 midterms, and most importantly, what this constitutional collision means for your life, your taxes, and the stability of the country you live in. I'm Daniel Kershaw, an independent legal and political journalist. I don't work for any party and I don't spin for any campaign. I just follow the facts, the court filings, and the Constitution. So, if a decision made in Washington today could fundamentally alter the power of the presidency for the next 50 years, wouldn't you want to know exactly how it works? To understand why this is happening now, we have to look at the timeline. Buried under the daily avalanche of news, House Democrats have made a calculated move. They have filed a resolution that functions as a direct trigger for impeachment proceedings. This isn't happening in a vacuum. It is happening while 6 different committees, Judiciary, Intelligence, Ways and Means, and others, are already digging through mountains of evidence. It is happening alongside ongoing court rulings and subpoena battles. But this resolution is the tip of the spear. Let's look at the law. Article 2, Section 4 is short, but every word carries the weight of history. It states that the President, Vice President, and all civil officers of the United States shall be removed from office on impeachment for and conviction of treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. The sponsors of this resolution are arguing that we are no longer in the realm of disagreement. They are arguing that the specific conduct of the former president meets the definition of treason, bribery, or other high crimes. From a legal perspective, this is a 5-alarm fire. You don't invoke this clause unless you are willing to burn almost every bridge in Washington. It signals that the legislative branch believes the executive branch has gone rogue. But here is where it gets interesting. Most people think impeachment is just a trial. It's not. It's a political remedy for a constitutional crisis. And there is a specific detail in how this is being framed that most mainstream reporting is missing, a detail that changes the entire strategy of the opposition. We need to talk about that strategy, because what Democrats are doing isn't just filing paperwork, they are setting a trap. But to understand the trap, you have to understand what high crimes actually means, because it's not what you think it is. Let's clear the air on a major misconception. When the Constitution talks about high crimes and misdemeanors, it does not necessarily mean a statutory crime you'd find in the criminal code. You don't have to rob a bank to be impeached. The founders, Hamilton, Madison, Mason, understood high crimes as an abuse of public trust. It covers corruption. It covers using the power of the office for personal gain. It covers betraying the national interest. Here is the sequence of what is actually unfolding in Congress right now. First, the resolution has been introduced. This frames the narrative. We are not waiting for the next election. The threat is immediate. Second, leadership must decide to refer this to the Judiciary Committee. This is where the investigation turns into an indictment process. Third, the House only needs a simple majority to impeach. That's it. If the Democrats stay unified, they can pass articles of impeachment. But, and this is a massive but, removal requires the Senate. And not just a majority, but a two-thirds supermajority. That is a mountain that is incredibly difficult to climb. So why do it? Why launch a missile if you know it might be intercepted? If you look at the strategy closely, you realize this is a stress test for the Republican Party. By filing this resolution, Democrats are forcing every single member of Congress to go on the record. They are stripping away the ability to hide in the gray area. They are saying, here is the evidence, here is the Constitution, yes or no. Does this conduct violate the oath of office? For a Republican representative in a swing district, someone who needs moderate voters to survive, this is a nightmare scenario. If they vote to protect Trump, they look lawless to the moderates. If they vote to impeach, they face the wrath of the MAGA base. Now, you might be thinking, Daniel, this is just political theater. Why should I care? Here is why. When the government is consumed by an impeachment crisis, everything else stops. The bandwidth for fixing the tax code? Gone. The negotiations to lower healthcare costs? Paused. The strategy to deal with inflation or border security? Sidetracked. If you are someone who just wants a government that functions, who just wants to know that the laws are stable so you can run your business or plan your retirement, this gridlock is a direct threat to your stability. But that's only the surface level. The deeper danger here isn't just about gridlock. It's about what happens if this fails. If the emergency brake is pulled and the car doesn't stop, what happens to the car? That is the question we need to answer next. Stay with me here because this is the part that changes everything. Impeachment is a battle for narrative dominance. On one side, you have the argument that this is constitutional enforcement. The claim is that if a president abuses power and Congress does not act, then Congress is effectively rewriting the Constitution to say that the president is a king. On the other side, you have Trump's counter-narrative, political warfare. He frames this as a witch hunt, a weaponization of the legal system to take out a political opponent because they can't beat him at the ballot box. We are witnessing a collision of two separate realities. And the scary part? Both sides know the stakes are existential. If impeachment succeeds, which is unlikely in the Senate, Trump is removed, barred from office, and loses his ability to use the machinery of the state to protect himself. If impeachment fails, it hands Trump a massive victory. He can claim exoneration. He can say, they threw their best shot at me and I'm still standing. From a legal perspective, this is deeply troubling. When you use the ultimate constitutional weapon, you cannot afford to miss. If you swing at the king and miss, you don't just fail to remove him, you empower him. You normalize the very conduct you were trying to stop. Buried in the political calculus is a gamble on the 2026 midterms. Democrats are betting that by dragging these facts into the sunlight, by holding hearings, calling witnesses, and creating a permanent record, they can convince the American public that the danger is real. Let's bring this back to your kitchen table. Think about the concept of accountability. In your life, if you break a contract, you get sued. If you violate traffic laws, you get fined. If you stop paying your mortgage, the bank takes your house. You live under the rule of law. The core question of this Article 2 crisis is, does that same rule apply to the most powerful man in the world? If the answer is no, if the system decides that removing a president is too politically painful, even in the face of misconduct, then we have effectively created a two-tiered justice system. One for you and one for them. And once that idea takes root, it rots the foundation of the entire country. But there is another layer to this, a psychological one. This isn't just about law, it's about how this fight is going to tear at the fabric of the country in the coming months. And if you think the temperature is high now, wait until you hear what the next phase of this process looks like. I'll be honest with you, covering this is exhausting. And if you are exhausted by it, I don't blame you. Most people don't have the time or the emotional energy to parse through legal filings every day. You have jobs, you have families, you just want things to work. But that exhaustion is exactly what political operatives count on. They count on you tuning out. They count on you saying, they're all the same, so they can operate in the shadows. Here is the trend that should keep you up at night. We are seeing a cycle of escalation. Every time a norm is broken and goes unpunished, the bar is lowered. If a president can ignore subpoenas, the oversight power dies. If a president can pressure foreign allies for domestic political help and survive, foreign policy becomes a tool for personal gain. If Article 2, Section 4 becomes a dead letter, a rule that exists on paper but can never be used because of partisanship, then the Constitution is just a piece of parchment in a museum, not a governing document. The outcome of this fight will define the rules for the next president and the one after that. If Trump survives this without consequence, every future president, Democrat or Republican, will look at this moment and say, that is the new standard. I can go that far, and I will be safe. This is how republics slide into something else. It doesn't happen overnight. It happens inch by inch, precedent by precedent, until one day you look up and realize the guardrails are gone. This is not hyperbole. This is history. We are watching the architecture of American government being hammered. The checks and balances we learned about in grade school are not automatic. They only work if people in power have the courage to pull the levers. Right now, Democrats are pulling the biggest lever they have. Republicans are bracing to block it. And the machinery of the state is groaning under the pressure. So, let's recap what we are facing. First, a formal invocation of the removal clause, Article 2, Section 4, framing the president's conduct as an immediate threat. Second, a high-stakes gamble to force accountability and shape the 2026 midterms, risking a witch hunt backlash if it fails. And third, the validity of the Constitution itself. Can the system still police its own highest office? As I said at the start, the big question here is simple: where does a president's power actually stop? If Congress cannot draw that line, then there is no line. And a president without lines is not a president. He is something much more dangerous. I want to turn this over to you. I'm really curious to know where you stand on this, not as a partisan, but as a citizen. Do you believe this move by Democrats is a necessary defense of the Constitution, or do you see it as a dangerous escalation that will only divide the country further? There is no right or wrong answer here, but the discussion matters. Let me know in the comments below. If you found this analysis helpful, if you appreciate breaking down the law without the screaming and the spin, please consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell. My goal is to help you navigate these chaotic times with facts, not fear. I'm Daniel Kershaw. Stay vigilant, stay informed, and I'll see you in the next one.